Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 25th day of July, and the year of our Lord 2025. I will be talking about what the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, called a treasonous conspiracy by officials at the very highest levels of the Obama White House to subvert the will of the American people. Before I begin this report, I want to take a moment and recognize this month, July 2025, this month is the 15th anniversary of the Castle Report. Yes, folks, that's right. I've been doing this for 15 years as of this month. It was conceived by a group of us in the state of Idaho back in 2010 after a discussion with some friends in the Constitution Party about how we needed people to speak on the issues. I said, I'll do it, but only if no one tries to control what I say or what I talk about, and to this point, no one has. I wonder sometimes if anyone cares about the issues enough to care about what I say or what I talk about. Yes, folks, yes, Tulsi made some explosive accusations, and she has released the documents to prove them. I'm starting to think that perhaps it was not a good idea for Hillary Clinton to refer to Tulsi as a Russian agent during the 2016 primary campaign. Perhaps it was not even a good idea to have Tulsi placed on the terrorist watch list so she would be unnecessarily searched in every airport she traveled through. Maybe you should not have had Tulsi followed by dog teams. Maybe you should not have taken her electronic gadgets, including her U.S. Army-issued laptop and phone, as she traveled through airports around the world. Yes, folks, what goes around comes around, and now the way Tulsi has been treated by Democrats, especially since she used to be one of them, is and has been shameful. But am I saying she released the documents for revenge? No, I'm not saying that, because the documents speak for themselves. Tulsi has demonstrated the honor expected of a 20-year Army officer to this point. Revenge is sweet, though. Can be sweet, and as they say, it's a dish best served cold. How explosive are Tulsi's allegations? Let's take a look. By the way, I assume that everyone is aware of what I'm talking about in regard to the completely false Russiagate accusations against Trump, so my intent is to look at the possible ramifications. Yes, the word treason is often used because it is a capital offense with no statute of limitations, and so the charges can be brought no matter how long ago the alleged offense occurred. Think about it like this, folks. The senior official in charge of all American intelligence operations is now stating unequivocally that former President Obama and the subordinates of his team intentionally sabotaged the peaceful transfer of power in 2016. She tells us, in effect, they violated their oaths. They betrayed their sworn duty to the American people. They attempted a coup against the legitimate government of the United States. In other words, they set out to weaken, overthrow the government of the United States. They did all this allegedly not on behalf of some foreign power, but on behalf of their own power. They had power. They wanted to keep it because I suppose they had the power addiction really bad. They just couldn't be bothered about the rules. So do those charges constitute treason? The U.S. Code, Article 3, Section 3, the U.S. Constitution, that is, Article 3, Section 3 defines treason. Quote, treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in open court, end quote. That's the Constitution, folks. So again, do the allegations constitute treason? I suppose one could try to allege that the acts constituted war against the United States, but it seems to me that the document, the Constitution, the rule of law, means that the war must be conducted on behalf of a foreign power, not treason then, at least not in my view. So what crimes did these people commit? Allegedly, I won't try to list all the possibilities, but the DOJ lawyers could look at each one and fit that into the crimes listed in the U.S. Code as federal criminal acts. We are very fortunate to have an apparently honest, obviously courageous woman like Tulsi Gabbard sorting through this mess. The powers that be, the deep state, all those power seekers in the Democrat Party must be terrified and determined to get some scandal on Tulsi to remove her as a threat. General Michael Flynn, who was Trump's national security advisor in the first Trump administration until he was driven from office by the crimes of the people accused by the documents Tulsi has just released, put it like this, quote, "This is why Gabbard was attacked so relentlessly over the past few weeks and months. They knew if there were anyone with guts to investigate the attempted coup, it would be her," end quote. Seems to me that the evidence released by Tulsi is overwhelming. So the question is always, what, if anything, will be done with that evidence? Will any of the accused, if they are found guilty, be sentenced? Time will tell. But the words so often used in the lawfare waged against Donald Trump come to mind. That is, no one is above the law. Is that phrase, "no one is above the law," really true? Well, it's supposed to be true. Going all the way back to the Magna Carta in 1215. The king was from then on to be subject to the law, as was every other Englishman. I suspect, however, it's no longer true. I believe that is because Washington is so irredeemably corrupt, they always find a way, with the help of their friends in the media, to worm through the cracks in perception. Quote from Tulsi, quote, "The implications of this are frankly nothing short of historic. It's worse than politicization of intelligence. These were manufactured intelligence documents sought to achieve President Obama and his team's objective, which was to undermine President Trump's presidency and subvert the will of the American people," end quote. Did the media assist in the criminal acts of the accused, and if so, how? Well, here's a quote from Paul Craig Roberts, who talks about it. Quote, "Gabbard said that Americans working in the intelligence agencies who are disgusted by Obama's attempted frame-up of Trump, an act of treason which carries a death penalty, are now coming forward as whistleblowers. Will America's first black president be the first president to be convicted of a capital crime, or will the corrupt American establishment succeed in protecting their puppet? The whore media is not happy about this development, as the prostitutes did all they could to make the fake story stick. Americans should understand that their media was an important participant in the plot against the people's will. Now the whores have moved on to using Epstein against Trump," end quote. A lot of different approaches were tried in the effort by a former administration to discredit a future administration, including the creation of a set of complete lies concocted by a British ex-spy known as the Steele dossier. That document told us that not only was Donald Trump aided by the very evil Vladimir Putin when he won the 2016 election, but while Trump was in Moscow, he was cavorting with prostitutes. Well, it turns out the documents clearly show the Steele dossier was a complete fantasy and a hoax paid for by the Hillary Clinton's campaign and personally ordered to be used by President Obama. The coup, organized and conducted by the Obama administration, was a kind of soft coup, using lies, fabricated documents, organized lawfare, all published and authenticated by the willing American media. I call it a soft coup because it used the things I just mentioned instead of violence. No tanks rolled through the streets of Washington, except symbolically, of course. The purpose, through the deliberate actions of people in the Obama administration, the purpose was to undermine the Trump administration and hinder the peaceful transfer of power, and thus, as Obama would have put it before, thus fundamentally change America from a constitutional republic into his private creation, his fiefdom. Until Tulsi Gabbard came along, my thoughts were that any possibility of holding people to account for this coup was close to zero. Would any of the accused of this coup be charged? Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, Peter Strzok and his lover, Lisa Page, Sally Yates, Samantha Power, Victoria Nuland of Ukrainian coup fame. Yes, folks, that Victoria Nuland. I guess she became kind of an expert on the coups, but she was in the meeting called by Obama to discuss the strategy of the coup we are talking about. So this was the first strategy. the first direct attack on Donald Trump and the will of the American people. Next, after this attempted coup, next came 2 efforts to impeach him and a series of never-ending lawfare attacks, which ultimately resulted in a conviction in New York City by a prosecutor now accused of serious crimes herself. If that were all, folks, it would be plenty. Add to that the 2 assassination attempts, one of which wounded him. Yes, folks, these people were and are serious in their efforts to turn, quote, our democracy, as they would put it, into a third world banana republic, the abrogation of the Constitution to use judicial methods, extrajudicial methods, to destroy the incoming president. It is the very definition of coup. We don't have coups here in America, do we? No, we respect our democracy and we respect the rule of law, unless, of course, this group of Democrat politicians and their bureaucrats were different from anything in America before them. Finally, folks, is this the worst political scandal in American history? Maybe it is. Governments throughout the centuries, though, have been all about scandals. Pogroms, wars, persecutions, criminality, as well as sexual debauchery, depravity, other forms of predatory behavior, just business as usual in Washington? Or was this scandal the worst ever? Perhaps the DOJ can dissect Tulsi's documents and tell us, or perhaps the intent is merely to embarrass the opposition. Time will tell, folks. At least that's the way I see it. Until next time, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.